So what you guys are looking at right now is a DM, or looks like hundreds of DMs of a trans person who exposed men sliding into their DMs. Now, it's been a long day, right? Between this and the flesh eating bacteria, I don't want to call it an STD because it's not that, but it can be sexually transmitted. I only have one question. If you're out here in the streets, are you not afraid? And listen, I'm not saying that you should live your life in fear, but I do believe that there's a certain healthy degree of fear so that you can survive this life. But I'm going somewhere with this, guys. Real quick, let's check out a few of these comments. Top comment here says, my coworker's husband. Somebody else here says, my cousin. So immediately you're probably shocked because you're like, wait, so people are actually typing in people who they actually recognize? Well, that's what it looks like. Somebody else who says, two of my friends. Here's somebody else who says, okay, so the creator here says part 2 got red flags. I had to, it got flagged. I had to upload it. Again, we're definitely not checking that out. Somebody else who says, didn't see anyone I knew. Praise God. Okay, so there's a lot of discussion here because this is coming out of Houston. I probably should have said that in the very beginning. And people are talking about Houston and the Houston men and the black men in Houston and be careful. And I've just been thinking, if I look at all the different topics that I've covered, that I have covered, everything from, and I'm talking about recently, everything from the protection that black women want from black men, everything from women wanting men who are more fluid, women not being okay with men who embrace their masculinity, calling those men dangerous, and just being a man being a bad thing. And then these households being ran by primarily single mothers, and then you're seeing an influx of a lot of sus behavior. It just leads me to think like all this sort of makes sense when you sit back and look at it. Because I personally believe, and this is me speaking what I believe, that God set things up the way that he wanted them to in every facet of life. And that we have tried to tamper with a lot of things, including the family structure, including with men and women's sexuality. And we've suffered the consequences of that in general. This is not just in the black community, I mean in general, right? Calling people women who aren't women, calling men men who aren't men. It's confusion. And the solution to this isn't going to come, I don't believe, from any individual person in some standoff, because that's what it seems like right now. People are like, oh, what are the men going to do? And what are the women going to do? I'm like, man, forget all that. What are you going to do for yourself in your life? In this life where we've seen, right? Because if I talk to Miss Coffee right now, and I'm talking about my AI assistant, Miss Coffee, and I ask her, I said, hey, because I did this earlier, I might do it again. I asked her, I said, hey, is there a correlation between, is there a connection between the rise of STDs and hookup culture, sexual liberation? And she said, yeah, right. She actually agreed with that. Now, you may find that surprising or you may not. What does that tell me? It tells me that there's no amount of regular checkups that's going to save some people. And who's some people? I don't know. Could be you. I'm not wishing this on you. Could have been me. Guys, I'm a regular person out here. And this is why I think when it comes to this, everybody's reaction, I think most people are going to be real with themselves. When you realize and you look back at the times you may have been maybe drunk or, you may have, in your dating life, you're just thankful if you got off unscathed out here, because it could be anybody. Now, this right here, this topic of the down low, that's a whole nother conversation, and how that ties in is going to make sense after I play this video here by this woman. Check it out. Of course, guys, curious to know what you think so far.
As a woman, I gain nothing from showing a list of men who are attracted to me.
By the way, I didn't say this. This list comes from Houston DL list that's circulating. That's wild. Wild shit.
Sit with this because it's complex. If you are a trans woman and you believe yourself to be a woman too, what exactly was there to expose? Because weaponizing your transness to shame attraction to you doesn't push the movement forward. It muddies the water. As a Houston native, I want to talk about what's happening in Houston right now. A trans woman exposed the DMs of a lot of men,
Mm.
implying they were all down low. And as usual, social media is spiraling. Let's unpack it. Social media will have you believing most men are DL. I don't believe that. I do believe many women have been in relationships with bisexual men, sometimes knowing, sometimes without knowing. And that's the real issue: deception, cheating, recklessness, taking my choice away. And that applies across the board, not in just DL situations. DL culture is dangerous. These men have hurt people. They can and will unalive men, women, that includes trans women, to keep their secret. So being someone's emotional and sexual dumping ground while they hide who they are is not a flex. You do not get an award for that. Now let's talk about Black women, because we often get scapegoated for DL culture. People say we are the
I'm trying to hold myself back. I'm trying to hold myself back.
reason these men stay closeted, but really it's patriarchy. Yes, Black women can uphold patriarchy, but we didn't create it and we hold the least power in it. I have seen some extremely homophobic takes from Black women, especially with that viral "who gonna be the boys" sound. And a lot of women weaponize disease in these conversations when the spread of STDs is not exclusive to DL men.
Okay. So there's a lot that's been said here. I'll start with this because the question I immediately have is like, how are you going to fix this? Like, how are you going to fix this? How are you going to fix this? How are you going to please the women who want fluid men? When I first heard that, I said, Chisha, I know you want to jump to the fact that that sounds sus as hell. Don't do that. That's what they expect you to do. Act normal. And this wasn't me holding back. I just said, you know what? Let me hear a little bit more. And by the end of it, I said, no, definitely sounds sus. And I heard other people on other podcasts who were like, yeah, it sounds a little bit weird. And I'm talking about Tracy Ellis Ross, by the way, when she says that, she likes dating younger men because they are more fluid. I don't know what that's all about. And then you have the issue of who's going to protect us. Specifically, within the Black community, you have Black women who are like, we're the Black men who are going to protect us. And I sit there, I'm looking at everything. I'm like, yo, if you're a chick today and you're looking around and you're asking yourself, and you truly believe this, by the way, you believe that marriage isn't worth it unless if a guy is some high net worth individual and there's nothing a man could give you outside of that or his height or anything else. I see a lot of value when it comes to hearing these horror stories. This is not me saying you should go get married as a woman, but I'm saying you would get that protection if you had a husband. You would get that assurance that the probabilities, because you know what they're going to say, oh, even if I was he could still cheat. Yeah, it could happen. But the probabilities, if both of you are out here being too freaked out, then the probabilities, I can only imagine, are crazy higher. And I'm talking about the probabilities of you contracting some crazy disease out here. This is why I believe God set things up a certain way. And that's my solution here to this conversation. I don't have a solution. I think God has my personal solution. I don't know how to fix this. All I think is good luck. Looks like a mess to me, right? You've got single mother households raising up men, and they don't like these men, right? They're raising up the men they eventually complain about and wondering and saying, oh, yeah, a portion of these men are more sus and they're more feminine. But when men call out a Black man on screen or any other man on screen who's being feminized very, very, very obviously, now you're enforcing your toxic masculinity. So you can't win if you focus on changing other people's lives and making decisions for themselves. But you can change your life. That's the only way I look at this whole situation. There is something she said there about she said something about, oh yeah, she said, patriarchy. When it comes to this conversation and I hear her talking about, oh, patriarchy, I think about women who are really quick to call men gay as soon as they disagree with those men. And in my last video, I asked, like, man, how is it that that's like the insult, right? How can that be the insult, but you really just support that heavily? But it's like an insult. Whole lot of confusion, whole lot of confusion going on, whole lot of confusion. And you embrace that confusion, then you get confusing results. And yes, sometimes I could come with a diagnosis. Listen to what else you had to say.
Spread of disease isn't about identity, it's about behavior. Some DL men are more likely to engage in risky behavior, multiple partners, inconsistent condom use, avoiding testing, hiding the truth from partners. That secrecy is the danger, not the label. And when DL men and straight men engage in similar behavior, their HIV and STI transmission rates are similar as well. This is a public health issue, not just a DL issue. STDs are high across the board.
Why did she leave the women out when we see these chicks are out here getting cracked left and right, flying, getting flown out? I'm saying both. I'm saying both here. I know there's some dogs out here who do not care, men, right, and women.
We need to hold space for truth and nuance, accountability and compassion. It's about being honest and safe. As a woman, I gain nothing from
Yeah. I don't know. Crazy. You guys want to know something crazy? Like really, really wild? I was talking to Miss Coffee, of course, that's my AI assistant. And I was asking her about, like, okay, so how about the rise of STDs with the rise of hookup culture and everything? She's like, yeah, that's definitely linked, definitely for sure, closely linked. And you hear people always downing the patriarchy, the patriarchy, the patriarchy. At the end of it, she said, the problem isn't sexual freedom or the increase of hookup culture. It's all these other things, like testing and this, that, and that. I'm like, nah. Like, this is now when you're pushing an agenda. And when it comes to the liberal perspective on this whole thing, like, there's never too far. And I believe there is too far. This doesn't mean that you have to view everything through a biblical lens if you don't identify as that. But I believe there is a too far. There's too much liberation when it comes to people's sexuality. People can be a little bit too comfortable with people who they're willing to smash, right? The amount of chicks who don't, ask men to wrap it up. The amount of men out here who aren't wrapping it up. And the crazy thing is that, like, this affects the people who get involved. And once in a while, you are a victim of somebody stepping out on you. But it's just some crazy times, man. Some crazy, crazy times. Be safe out here. Of course, I'm curious to know, what do you guys think? Leave your comments down below. I appreciate you all for checking out yet another episode of The Coffee Pod. Till next time, I'm out. Peace.